I am Wyatt, 30 years old, and I just watched my own brother's wedding implode on a live stream from 6,000 miles away. But before I tell you about the video that is currently destroying my family's reputation, let me know where you guys are watching from in the comments. I'm reading them all. It started 3 days ago. The air in the hotel lobby smelled like expensive lilies and old money. This was the rehearsal dinner for what my father, Thomas, kept calling the wedding of the century. My brother, Julian, was marrying Isabella, a woman whose family name was on half the buildings in downtown Chicago. I was standing near the entrance, adjusting the collar of my shirt. It wasn't a tuxedo. It was a clean, button-down shirt and a blazer I liked. But apparently it wasn't enough. My father marched over to me. He didn't walk, he marched. His face was flushed, that specific shade of red he gets when he's trying to control his temper in public. He grabbed my arm, his fingers digging into my bicep. "Wyatt," he hissed, keeping his voice low so the guests wouldn't hear. "What do you think you're doing?" "I'm here for the rehearsal, Dad," I said, pulling my arm away. "Isabella invited me." "Isabella is too polite to tell you that you look like a vagrant," my father spat. He looked me up and down with pure disgust. "Look at you. No tie. Sneakers? At the plaza. They're $300 sneakers, Dad," I said calmly. And the invitation said, "Smart casual. For the rehearsal. For the guests, Wyatt. For the elite guests." He waved a hand toward the room where men in three-piece suits were holding crystal tumblers. "Julian is marrying into the Sterling family. Do you understand what that means? These people are royalty. And you are an embarrassment." I felt that familiar tightness in my chest. It was the same feeling I'd had since I was 10 years old. The feeling of never being enough. "I'm his brother. That is the only reason you were allowed inside the building," my father said. "But I am drawing the line here. We need elite guests only. You don't fit." Julian walked over then. He was holding a glass of scotch he clearly didn't like the taste of, wearing a suit that cost more than most people's cars. He smirked when he saw me. He didn't defend me. He never did. "He's right, Wyatt," Julian said, checking his reflection in the glass door. "Look, bro, I love you, but you represent a different demographic. We have investors here, people who matter. We can't have you talking about your little computer games or whatever it is you do for a barely living wage." "I don't make a barely living wage, Julian," I said, my voice hardening. "Stop it," Dad cut in. "I am not going to let you ruin this. I am not going to let you humiliate your brother with your poverty. You are uninvited." The words hung in the air. The piano music in the background seemed to stop. "Excuse me?" I asked. "You heard me," Dad said, stepping closer, using his height to intimidate me. "Go home. We told everyone you came down with the flu. It's better this way. We don't have to explain why the groom's brother looks like he fixes cable for a living." I looked at Julian. He just shrugged and took a sip of his scotch. "Sorry, man. Dad's paying for the wedding. His rules." I looked around the room. I saw Isabella across the hall, looking stressed, talking to her father. She looked trapped. I almost called out to her, but I stopped. This wasn't her fight. And honestly, at that moment I realized something. I didn't want to be there. I looked at my father. He was waiting for me to beg. That's how our dynamic always worked. He would crush me, and I would scramble to pick up the pieces to please him. He expected me to ask for a suit. He expected me to promise to sit in the back and not speak to anyone. But I was 30 years old, and I was tired. "Okay," I said. My father blinked. "Okay, you don't want me here? Fine. I won't be here." I took a step back. "I hope the wedding is everything you paid for, Julian." "Don't be dramatic," Dad scoffed. "Just go back to your apartment and stay off social media until this is over." I turned around and walked out. I didn't look back. I walked through the revolving doors and out into the cool evening air. My heart was pounding, not with sadness, but with adrenaline. I pulled out my phone. I had a decision to make. I could go back to my place, order takeout, and sulk. Or I could do something else. I opened my banking app. I looked at the balance. It was a number my father couldn't even imagine. A number I had built quietly, investing in crypto infrastructure and tech startups while they were busy mocking me for being a computer nerd. I scrolled through my calendar. I had a meeting scheduled in Tokyo next week with a potential partner, Kenji. I was planning to do it over Zoom. Screw it, I whispered to myself. I opened the airline app. I found a flight leaving JFK in 3 hours. Japan Airlines. First class. One way. I booked it without hesitation. The confirmation email pinged instantly. I hailed a cab. JFK, I told the driver. Step on it. The ride to the airport felt like an escape scene from a movie. I watched the city blur past. My phone started buzzing. It was my mom, probably calling to tell me to apologize to Dad. I silenced it. Then a text from Julian. Don't do anything stupid. Just stay home. I laughed. A dry, humorless sound. Home wasn't where they thought it was. At the airport, I walked right past the long economy line that my father assumed I would be standing in. I went to the first-class check-in. The attendant looked at my hoodie, then at my passport, and then her eyes widened when she saw my status. Mr. Wyatt, she said, her voice dropping to a respectful hush. Welcome back. We have your usual seat ready. Would you like an escort to the lounge? Yes, thank you, I said. Walking through the terminal, I felt a weight lifting off my shoulders. For years, I had played the role they assigned me. The screw-up, the underachiever, the poor relation. I did it to keep the peace, to avoid questions about my money because I knew if they knew, they would bleed me dry. But now, the bridge was burned, and the fire was beautiful. I sat in the lounge, sipping a glass of whiskey that cost more than the blazer my father had insulted. I looked at the departure board. Tokyo. 14 hours of silence. 14 hours where no one could tell me I wasn't good enough. I boarded the plane. My seat wasn't a seat. It was a suite. I settled in, the leather soft against my back. The flight attendant brought me a glass of champagne before we even took off. To family, I whispered, raising the glass to the empty air. And to being uninvited. As the plane taxied down the runway, I felt the immense power of the engines vibrating through the floor. We lifted off, leaving the ground, leaving the wedding, leaving the toxicity behind. I watched the lights of New York disappear beneath the clouds. I didn't know it then, but while I was in the air, sipping vintage champagne and watching a movie, my family was about to face the worst day of their lives. I was flying toward freedom, but they were heading straight for a collision course with reality. And the best part? I had the best seat in the house to watch it burn, and I wouldn't even be there. The cabin lights dimmed as we reached cruising altitude. The hum of the aircraft was soothing, a white noise that usually helped me sleep. But tonight, sleep felt impossible. My mind was rewinding, playing back the greatest hits of my father's cruelty. It wasn't just tonight. Tonight was just the finale. The prelude had started decades ago. I lay back in my suite, staring at the ceiling of the plane. I remembered the day I turned 18, the day of the car. It was a hot July afternoon. Julian was 20, already in college, barely passing his classes, spending more time rushing fraternities than studying. I had just graduated high school with honors, but in the chaos of Julian's life, nobody really noticed. Dad had called us both out to the driveway. There, sitting under a big red bough, was a Porsche, a vintage 911. It was beautiful, sleek, silver, powerful. My heart had skipped a beat. I had been working 2 jobs, mowing lawns and fixing computers at the library, saving up for a beat-up Honda. I thought maybe, just maybe, Dad had seen my hard work. Happy late birthday, Julian, Dad shouted, tossing the keys to my brother. I froze. Julian? Julian already had a car. A perfectly good SUV that Dad had bought him 2 years prior. Thanks, Dad. You're the king. Julian whooped, jumping into the driver's seat, revving the engine until the neighbors looked out their windows. I stood there, feeling like I had swallowed a stone. Dad, I said quietly, I need a car to get to community college. The bus takes 2 hours. Dad looked at me like I had asked for a kidney. Wyatt, look, Business has been a little tight this quarter. The inheritance from your grandmother. Well, we decided it was best invested in Julian's image. He's going to business school. He needs to look the part. You understand, right? Image? I repeated. I need transportation. He needs an image. Don't be selfish, Dad snapped, his smile vanishing. When Julian makes it big, he'll take care of you. That's how this family works. We back the winner. We back the winner. That phrase haunted me. It was the unofficial motto of our household. And in Thomas's eyes, Julian was the winner because he was loud, charming, and looked like a young CEO, even if he couldn't do basic math. I was the loser because I was quiet, read books, and liked code. I remembered the college fund, or rather, the lack of one. When it was my turn to go to university, the money was gone. Legal fees, Dad had said vaguely. Julian had gotten into some trouble, a DUI that miraculously disappeared from his record. The lawyer had cost my tuition. So I didn't go to the Ivy League school I got into. I went to the state school. I worked nights. I taught myself blockchain architecture when everyone else was sleeping. I took a sip of my champagne, the bubbles sharp on my tongue. Then there was the career talk. Just last Thanksgiving, I had tried one last time to explain what I did. I'm building a decentralized finance platform, Dad, I had said over the turkey. We just secured a major round of funding. Dad had laughed. He actually laughed. Funding? You mean internet money? Wyatt, when are you going to get a real job? Julian just got promoted to Senior VP of Sales. I know, Dad, I said. I saw his LinkedIn. I didn't mention that Julian's company was owned by Dad's golf buddy, and the promotion was basically a title change with no real responsibility. You need stability, son, Dad lectured, waving a fork at me. A salary, benefits, 401k. This crypto nonsense is a scam. You're going to wake up one day with nothing. It's not a scam, Dad. It's the future of banking. It's gambling, he shouted. And I won't have it. I told my friends you work in IT support. It's easier than explaining that my son is unemployed playing with imaginary coins. IT support. That's what he told the guests at the wedding rehearsal. That I fixed cables. I closed my eyes, feeling the anger rise up again. But then I remembered the investment. 2 years ago, Dad had come to me desperate. He had put a massive chunk of his retirement savings into a strip mall development project that turned out to be a Ponzi scheme. He was panicking. I lost it, Wyatt, he had whispered, sitting in his kitchen, looking old and frail. It's gone. I had wanted to help. I really did. I had the money. I could have written a check that day and cleared his debt. But then he said it. If only you had listened to me, he moaned. If only you had a real career like Julian, maybe you could help. But I guess I have to ask Julian to speak to his father-in-law. Maybe he can get a loan. He was asking for a loan from the family he was trying to impress, rather than respecting the son sitting right in front of him. That was the moment I decided to stay silent. I realized that giving him money wouldn't fix the problem. It would only enable him. And worse, he would probably claim the money came from Julian anyway. So I let him believe I was poor. I let him pay for my dinners when I visited, listening to his lectures about budgeting, while I had a black card in my wallet that could buy the restaurant. It was a lonely kind of satisfaction. I shifted in my seat, turning on the in-flight entertainment screen. I wasn't going to let them ruin this flight. I was going to Tokyo to meet Kenji. Kenji was the CEO of a major tech conglomerate in Japan. He treated me with a deference that confused my father would have found baffling. To Kenji, I wasn't Wyatt the screw-up. I was Wyatt-san, the visionary. I checked the flight path. We were halfway over the Pacific. I wondered what was happening back in New York. The wedding ceremony should be starting soon. I imagined Julian at the altar, sweating in his custom tuxedo, probably hungover. I imagined Dad strutting around, bragging about the rental Rolls-Royce he had secured for the exit photos. I imagined Isabella. Isabella was different. She was rich, yes, but she wasn't like them. She had kind eyes. She actually asked me questions about my life. A few weeks ago, at a family barbecue, She had sat with me on the porch while Julian was inside watching football. "Does it bother you?" she had asked. "How they talk to you?" "I'm used to it," I had shrugged. "You shouldn't have to be," she said softly. "You're the most genuine person in this family, Wyatt." I felt a pang of guilt. I should have warned her. I should have told her about the debts Dad was hiding. I should have told her that Julian was marrying her partly because he needed her trust fund to cover his gambling losses. But would she have believed me? The jealous, poor brother trying to sabotage the wedding? No, she had to see it for herself. I just hoped she saw it before she signed the marriage license. I finally drifted off to sleep, lulled by the engine's drone. I dreamed of silver Porsches crashing into walls of code. When I woke up, the cabin was filled with the soft light of dawn. We were beginning our descent into Haneda Airport. I stretched, feeling rested for the first time in days. I refreshed myself in the luxurious lavatory, put on a fresh hoodie, expensive cashmere, though Dad wouldn't know the difference, and prepared to land. As the wheels touched the tarmac in Tokyo, I felt a surge of excitement. I was in a new world, a world where merit mattered more than blood. I thanked the flight attendants, grabbed my bag, and walked off the plane. I turned on my phone as I walked down the jet bridge. It buzzed. Then it buzzed again. Then it started vibrating continuously, like an angry hornet in my hand. Notification after notification. Missed calls, voicemails, texts, not just from Dad or Mom, from cousins I hadn't spoken to in years, from old high school friends, and then the news alerts. Viral wedding fail trends on Twitter. Billionaire heiress flees altar. The groom's meltdown, caught on 4K. I stopped in the middle of the hallway, causing a businessman behind me to swerve. My thumb hovered over the Twitter icon. My heart hammered against my ribs. I had expected drama. I had expected a bad toast or a drunken argument. I did not expect this. I clicked the link. Standing in the sleek, futuristic arrival hall of Haneda Airport, I felt like a ghost haunting my own life. People rushed past me, focused on their destinations, while I was frozen, staring at a 5-inch screen that was broadcasting the destruction of my family name. The video had 12 million views. It had been posted only 4 hours ago. The thumbnail showed Isabella, looking furious, her veil torn, pointing a finger at Julian. The title was simple: Gold Digger Groom Gets Exposed at Altar. I put in my earbuds and pressed play. The video was shot from the audience, probably by a guest's smartphone. The quality was crisp, unfortunately for Julian. It showed the altar of the massive cathedral. Flowers everywhere. It looked like a royal coronation. The priest was speaking. "If anyone here has any just cause why these two may not be joined together." Usually there is silence. In the video, Isabella turned to Julian. She didn't look like a blushing bride. She looked like an avenging angel. She reached into the bodice of her dress and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "I have a cause," she said. Her voice didn't shake. It echoed off the vaulted ceilings. The audience gasped. You could hear the collective intake of breath. "Isabella, baby, what are you doing?" Julian's voice. He sounded nervous, that fake charm cracking instantly. "Put that away. We can talk later." "Talk?" Isabella laughed. A sharp, terrifying sound. "Like you talked to your bookie yesterday? Or like you talked to your father about how my trust fund was going to clear the mortgage on your parents' house." The camera zoomed in on Dad in the front row. He was turning purple. He stood up. "Isabella, this is inappropriate. Sit down." "You sit down, Thomas," Isabella screamed. "I know everything. I know about the bankruptcy filing you're hiding. I know Julian owes $600,000 in gambling debts. And I know you plan to use my signature on the marriage license to secure a joint loan tomorrow morning." The crowd went wild. Murmurs turned into shouts. Julian tried to grab her arm. "You're being hysterical. You're ruining the optics." Optics. That word. It triggered something in me. It was Dad's favorite word. Isabella slapped him. It wasn't a movie slap. It was a hard, loud crack that must have hurt her hand as much as his face. Julian stumbled back, clutching his cheek, looking more shocked than hurt. "Don't touch me," she hissed. "I am not your bailout package." Then came the kicker. From the side of the altar, the best man stepped forward. It was Carter. I knew Carter. We grew up together. He was Julian's friend, but he had always been decent to me. He was quiet, observant. I thought he was just another one of Julian's lackeys. In the video, Carter didn't try to calm everyone down. He took off his boutonniere, the white rose on his lapel, and threw it at Julian's feet. "I told you, Julian," Carter said, his voice deep and clear. "I told you if you didn't tell her the truth, I would." "You traitor!" Dad screamed, rushing the altar. "After everything I did for you." "You didn't do anything for me, Thomas," Carter said calmly. "You used me, just like you use everyone." Carter offered his hand to Isabella. "Ready. Get me out of here," she said. And then, the moment that made the internet explode. Isabella hiked up her massive designer gown, revealing running shoes underneath. She had planned this, and ran down the aisle with Carter. They burst out of the church doors. The cameraman, bless his chaotic soul, ran after them. The video cut to the street. Car was waiting. Not a limo, not a Rolls-Royce, a vintage Ford Bronco. Rugged, real. They jumped in. Carter revved the engine and peeled away, leaving the wedding of the century in a cloud of exhaust. The video ended with a shot of Julian standing alone at the altar, looking small and pathetic, while Dad screamed at the priest to cut the feed. I stood in the Tokyo airport, my mouth open. I replayed the last 10 seconds. I listened closely to the background audio. Amidst the chaos, I could hear Dad's voice screaming something specific. "My line of credit. The bank is going to take the house on Monday." I froze. The house? The house I grew up in. The house Dad claimed was fully paid off years ago. The house he used as proof of his superior financial intellect. He had leveraged it, probably to pay for this wedding, to pay for the rental Rolls-Royces and the imported flowers. He had bet the roof over his head on the hope that Julian would marry rich and bail him out. And now, the bailout had just driven away in a Ford Bronco. I switched apps to my text messages. "Dad, 14 missed messages, where are you? Answer your phone. Your brother needs support. This is all a misunderstanding. We need money for a lawyer. Isabella breached a verbal contract. Wyatt, pick up. We know you have some savings from that computer job." "Julian, 5 missed messages, bro, my life is over. Carter set me up. Everyone is laughing at me. Do you have Carter's number? He blocked me. Mom, 3 missed messages, please call home. Your father is having chest pains. Correction. He is fine. He is just yelling at the caterers to give refunds. Why aren't you here?" I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. A strange sound escaped my throat. A laugh. Then another. I was laughing so hard that tears pricked my eyes. It was tragic. It was horrible. But it was also the most satisfying thing I had ever seen. I looked up. A driver in a black suit was holding a sign. Mr. Wyatt VIP. I composed myself. I put the phone in my pocket. I wasn't Wyatt the exile anymore. I was Mr. Wyatt VIP. "I'm here," I said to the driver. He bowed deeply. "Welcome to Tokyo, sir. Kenji-san is expecting you at the Amon Hotel." I got into the back of the car, a real, owned, not rented Lexus LS. As we merged onto the highway toward the glittering skyline of Tokyo, I felt a disconnect. My family was drowning in a storm of their own making. I was watching from the shore, dry and safe, but I knew this wasn't over. They were desperate, and desperate people look for life rafts. I checked my phone again. A voicemail from an unknown number. Played it. "Hey Wyatt, it's Carter." My pulse quickened. "Look, I know you're somewhere else, but you need to see the documents I just emailed you. Before your dad tries to spin this, he's going to come for you next. He needs a scapegoat and he needs cash. Check your email. And, sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I had to get her out safely." I opened my email. An attachment named project_golden_child.pdf. I scrolled through the first few pages. bank statements, loan applications with forged signatures, and then a series of emails between Dad and Julian discussing me. Subject: the Wyatt problem. Date: 2 months ago. From Dad, don't worry about Wyatt. If the Sterling marriage fails, we can always guilt Wyatt into signing over his grandmother's trust. I know he says it's gone, but I think he has something stashed. We can threaten to cut him off completely. He's weak. He'll fold. He called me weak. I looked out the window at the Tokyo Tower glowing red in the night. Weak, I whispered. I opened my banking app again. I moved a significant sum of money, an amount that could buy my father's house twice over, into a secured, offshore trust where no one, especially Thomas, could touch it. They thought I was their backup plan. They thought I was the safety net they could spit on and then land on. They were about to find out that the net was gone. The Amon Tokyo is a sanctuary high above the city, a place of stone, wood, and silence. It was exactly the opposite of the chaos consuming my phone. I sat in my suite, wearing a hotel robe that felt like a cloud, eating sushi that had been prepared by a master chef downstairs. My phone was propped up against a glass of sake. It was vibrating so much it was slowly walking across the table. Dad had moved from texting to calling. Every 3 minutes, I decided to answer, not because I wanted to help, but because I needed to gauge the threat level. And honestly, a part of me wanted to hear the panic. Hello, I answered, keeping my voice flat. Wyatt, where the hell are you? Dad's voice cracked. He sounded hoarse. In the background, I could hear sirens. Police sirens? I'm traveling, Dad. Like you said, I wasn't needed at the wedding. Traveling? Traveling where? You need to come home. We have a crisis. I saw the video, I said, picking up a piece of fatty tuna. Isabella has a good arm. This is not funny, he screamed. She humiliated us. The Sterlings are threatening to sue us for the cost of the reception. And Julian is in a state. Where is Julian? He's in his room. He won't come out. The press is on the lawn, Wyatt. The paparazzi. They are calling us grifters. Well, I said, swallowing the sushi. If the shoe fits. How dare you? We are victims here. That girl led him on. Dad took a breath, trying to steady himself. I could hear the gears turning. The manipulation was starting. Listen, son. We need to present a united front. Family supports family. I need you to come back and handle the press. You're good with tech stuff. You can get the video taken down, right? You know hackers? I almost choked on my sake. That's not how the internet works, Dad. Once it's viral, it's forever. It's on TMZ. Then we need legal counsel. High-level defamation lawyers. They want a retainer. $20,000 just to open the file. Here it comes. I need you to wire it, Wyatt. I know you have that savings account from your IT work. Mom said you didn't buy a new car this year. You must have it. I don't have $20,000 for a lawyer, Dad. I lied. I'm just a cable guy, remember? Don't lie to me. I know you have it. Or take a loan. Your credit score is decent, isn't it? You want me to take a loan to defend Julian? He's your brother. He was the golden boy, Wyatt. If he falls, we all fall. Do you want us to lose the house? I thought the house was paid off, I said, testing him. Silence. Heavy, guilty silence on the other end. There are complexities, he muttered. Market fluctuations. Look, just send the money. Or come home and sign for a loan. I can co-sign. You have no credit, Dad, I said coldly. Isabella said it on the live stream. You're bankrupt. That which lied. I have the documents, Dad, I said. Carter sent them. The silence this time was terrifying. It wasn't guilty. It was dangerous. You're talking to Carter? Dad's voice dropped to a whisper. You're conspiring with the enemy? He's not the enemy. He's the guy who stopped a fraud. You ungrateful little. Dad trailed off. Fine. You want to play hardball? You think you're safe because you're... Where are you? Jersey. Tokyo. I said. Tokyo? He paused. What are you doing in Tokyo? Business. You don't have business in Tokyo. You fix laptops. He was screaming again. Stop lying and come home. If you don't wire the money by tomorrow morning, don't bother coming back. I will cut you out of the will. I will erase you from this family. You already erased me, Dad, I said. 3 days ago, at the plaza. Remember? I hung up. My hand was shaking slightly, not from fear, but from the adrenaline of finally saying no. I looked around the suite. The view of the Imperial Palace Gardens was breathtaking. I was safe here, but I knew Dad. He wouldn't stop. He would try to access my old accounts. He would try to find me. There was a knock at the door. Come in, I called out. It was Kenji. He looked impeccable in a dark suit, bowing slightly as he entered. Wyatt-san, he said, smiling warm. My apologies for interrupting, but the board is very eager to meet you. The merger papers are ready for your review. Thank you, Kenji. I stood up, tightening the sash of my robe. I'll get dressed. Is everything all right? Kenji asked, noticing my expression. You look troubled. Just some family matters, I said. Domestic disputes. Kenji nodded respectfully. Family is difficult, but business is simple. Numbers do not lie. Exactly, I smiled. Oh, by the way, Kenji added, pausing at the door. We have arranged a small celebration for tonight after the signing. A few investors want to meet the man who predicted the crypto crash of 24. And I took the liberty of arranging a car for you for the duration of your stay. A Rolls-Royce Phantom. I hope that is acceptable. I froze. A Rolls-Royce, the exact car Julian had rented to show off. The car Dad worshipped as a symbol of status. It's perfect, Kenji, I said. Thank you. As the door closed, I looked at my reflection in the window. The ghost of the poor brother was fading. The billionaire investor was stepping forward. But I knew I couldn't just ignore them. If I didn't shut this down, Dad would harass me forever. He would harass Isabella. He would drag Carter through the mud. I needed to end this, not with a whisper, but with a bang. I picked up my phone. I opened the FaceTime app. It was time for the IT guy to show them his true network. It was 10 a.m. in New York, 11 p.m. in Tokyo. I set the stage carefully. I didn't sit at the desk. I sat on the balcony of the penthouse, with the glittering Tokyo skyline behind me. I wanted them to see the world they were excluded from. I called the family landline. I knew they would be gathered there, huddled in the kitchen, plotting. Mom answered. Wyatt? Oh, thank God. Thomas. It's Wyatt. The camera shook as the phone was passed. Dad's face filled the screen. He looked terrible. His eyes were bloodshot, his skin splotchy. Behind him, I saw the kitchen. It was a mess. Pizza boxes, empty wine bottles, papers scattered everywhere. Julian was sitting at the table, head in his hands. Wyatt, Dad barked. I knew you'd come to your senses. Did you wire the money? Hello, Dad, I said calmly. Put me on speaker. I want Julian to hear this. Don't give me orders. Just tell me the confirmation number. But he put the phone down, propping it up against a sugar bowl. I saw Julian lift his head. He looked like a wreck. Bro, he croaked. Please, I need a lawyer. Isabella's dad is threatening criminal charges for fraud. They say I falsified my income on the prenup. Did you? I asked. I projected my future earnings. Julian argued weakly. It's the same thing. It's fraud, Julian, I said. Stop lecturing him, Dad snapped. We need $5,000 immediately for the retainer. We found a cheaper lawyer. Just send it, Wyatt. I know you have it. You're single. You don't spend money. Stop being stingy. I'm not sending you money, Dad. Excuse me? Dad's vein popped in his forehead. This is an emergency. We are drowning here. If we lose this house, where will we go? You owe us. We raised you. You raised me to believe I was worthless. I corrected him. And I'm not sending you money because I don't support bad investments. Isn't that what you taught me? You insolent. Dad stood up, looking like he wanted to reach through the screen and strangle me. I am your father. I demand you help your brother. He is the victim of a gold digger. He's a con artist, Dad. And so are you. That's it, Dad sneered. I'm done asking. If you don't transfer the funds in 10 minutes, I'm calling the police. I'll tell them you stole from me. I'll tell them you hacked my accounts. Who will they believe? The respected businessman or the computer dropout? He was bluffing, but it was a vicious bluff. Respected businessman? I laughed. Dad, check the news. You're a meme. Who are you talking to like that? Julian shouted, slamming his hand on the table. You think you're better than us because you're hiding in wherever you are. You're nothing. You're a nobody. Actually, a deep voice came from behind me. I didn't turn around. I knew who it was. Kenji had stepped out onto the balcony. He came into the frame, standing next to me, looking impeccable in his tuxedo. Dad and Julian froze. They squinted at the screen. Who is that? Dad asked. Ideally, your waiter? Kenji smiled. A cold, sharp smile. I am not a waiter. I am Kenji Sato, CEO of Sato Corporation. Dad's jaw dropped. He knew the name. Sato Corp was one of the biggest tech firms in the world. Dad had tried and failed to buy stock in them years ago. Mr. Sato? Dad stammered. Why are you with my son? Is he fixing your computer? Kenji laughed. It was a polite but devastating laugh. Fixing my computer? No, Mr. Mason. Wyatt is my partner. He is the chairman of the new joint venture we just signed. He owns 40% of the digital infrastructure we are building. Silence. Absolute, dead silence in the kitchen in New York. Julian's mouth hung open. Chairman. Wyatt. Dad whispered. What is he talking about? I tried to tell you, Dad, I said, leaning back in my chair, sipping my drink. I told you crypto wasn't a scam. I told you I was building something. You just never listened. But you drive a Honda, Julian said, his brain unable to process the information. I like the Honda, I shrugged. It's reliable. Unlike you. Mr. Wyatt, Kenji interrupted smoothly. Your Rolls-Royce is waiting downstairs to take us to the gala. We shouldn't be late. Rolls-Royce. Dad repeated the word like a prayer. Yes, I said. Funny thing, Dad. I didn't have to rent mine. The realization hit them like a physical blow. I watched it happen in real time. Dad's face went pale. He looked at the messy kitchen, the pile of debt notices, and then at me, sitting in a penthouse in Tokyo, a multimillionaire. The power dynamic didn't just shift. It shattered. Wyatt! Dad's voice changed instantly. It became syrupy, fake, desperate. Son, my boy, why didn't you tell us? We are so proud of you. Chairman. Incredible. Don't, I said. No, really. This changes everything. Dad leaned into the camera. A frantic smile plastered on his face. With your resources, we can fix this. You can pay off the house. You can settle Julian's debts. We can make the Sterlings go away. We can be a power family, Wyatt. You and me. Me? I raised an eyebrow. I thought I didn't fit. I thought I needed elite guests only. I was stressed. Dad waved his hand dismissively. I didn't mean it. You know how I get. Family is family, Wyatt. Blood is thicker than water. And money is thicker than blood, apparently, I said. Bro, Julian chimed in, suddenly looking hopeful. Come on, help me out. I'm your big brother. I looked out for you in high school. You bullied me in high school, Julian, I said flatly. You stole my lunch money. Water under the bridge, Julian pleaded. Look, just send us, I don't know, 50 grand? That's pocket change for you now, right? Please, they're going to take my car. They're going to take Dad's house. I looked at them, really looked at them. They weren't sorry. They weren't happy for me. They were just parasites looking for a new host. No, I said. What? Dad's smile faltered. No, I'm not paying off the house. I'm not paying the gambling debts. I'm not paying for the lawyer. You can't do this to us. Dad screamed, the mask falling off again. You selfish brat. You owe us. I don't owe you anything, I said. I'm uninvited, remember? And uninvited guests don't bring gifts. Wyatt. Goodbye, Dad. Good luck with the foreclosure. I reached out and pressed the red button. The screen went black. I sat there for a moment, listening to the Tokyo wind. My heart was racing, but I felt lighter than air. Kenji looked at me. That was intense. It was necessary, I said. I stood up and adjusted my blazer. Ready for the gala? Ready, Kenji said. The next morning, the hangover from the adrenaline was real, but the news made it worth it. I woke up to a new set of headlines. The story had evolved. It wasn't just about the runaway bride anymore. It was about the fraud family. Sterling family sues Mason family for fraud and damages. Groom's father's home foreclosure notice leaked. Luxury rental company repossesses groom's Ferrari on live TV. I watched that last video while drinking coffee in bed. A tow truck driver was hooking up the Ferrari in Dad's driveway. Julian was running out in his bathrobe, trying to stop them, screaming, "Do you know who I am?" The tow truck driver just shrugged and said, "Yeah, you're the guy whose credit card declined." It was brutal. It was humiliating. And it was entirely their own fault. My phone was quiet. I had blocked Dad and Julian the night before, but I had a message from Carter. Carter, did you see the news? Your dad is telling the press he was scammed by investment bankers. He's trying to play the victim. Let him try. No one believes him. Carter, Isabella wants to say thank you. She says if you hadn't walked out of the rehearsal, she wouldn't have realized how toxic they were. Seeing how they treated you, it was the final straw. It made her look into the finances. I stared at the text. My exile hadn't just saved me. It had saved her too. Tell her she's welcome. And Carter, thanks for being the only decent guy in that church. Carter, anytime. By the way, your dad called me. He thinks I poisoned your mind. He doesn't know about Tokyo yet. Or does he? He knows. He saw the view. I put the phone down. I spent the rest of the week working with Kenji's team. It was grueling intellectual work, and I loved every second of it. I was respected. I was listened to. I was valued for my brain, not my appearance. But the real aftermath came 3 days later. I received an email from a law firm in New York. Not the one Dad wanted to hire. A different one. Subject: Notice of lien/Robert Mason. It turns out, Dad had tried to use my name, my old name, without the middle initial I use for business, to open a new credit line right after our call. He was desperate. He tried to commit identity theft against his own son to save his house. But because I had moved my assets and put alerts on my credit, the bank flagged it instantly. My lawyer called me. "Mr. Wyatt, this is a clear case of attempted fraud. We can press charges. Or we can issue a cease and desist with a warning that any further attempts will result in immediate prosecution." I held the phone, looking out at the rain falling over Tokyo. Pressing charges meant sending my father to jail. He was an awful man, a narcissist and a bully, but he was pathetic. Jail seemed like a waste of taxpayer money. "Issue the warning," I said, "but add a clause. If he or Julian contacts me, or mentions my name to the press, or tries to use my identity again, I will bury them in litigation until they can't afford a postage stamp." "Understood, sir." I hung up. It was done. The cord was cut. That evening, I went to a small ramen shop in a back alley of Shinjuku. It was a place Kenji recommended. No Michelin stars, just steam and noise and good food. I sat at the counter eating alone. I wasn't lonely. I felt a profound sense of peace. I thought about the college fund Dad stole. I thought about the investment he lied about. I thought about the Porsche. I realized I didn't need their apology. I didn't need their validation. The best revenge wasn't screaming at them. It wasn't even rubbing my wealth in their faces. though that was fun for a minute. The best revenge was living a life they couldn't touch. A notification popped up on Instagram. It was Aunt Laura. She was the one neutral party in the family. She had posted a picture of Dad's house. There was a for sale sign on the lawn. The caption read, "End of an era. Sad to see it go." I zoomed in. In the window, I could see a silhouette. Dad, looking out at the street where he used to command respect. Now, he was just another guy who lived beyond his means. I liked the photo. Then I archived the chat with my family. I ordered another beer. "Can pie," I said to myself. I had lost a family, but I had gained a life. And honestly, it was the best trade deal I had ever made. 3 months. That's how long it takes to break a habit. It takes 3 months to stop reaching for the phone when something good happens, expecting a good job that never comes. It takes 3 months to stop flinching when a door slams, expecting a lecture about how you're failing the family name. In Tokyo, 3 months felt like a lifetime. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and the autumn leaves were turning the streets of Shinjuku into rivers of gold and crimson. I was sitting in a glass-walled conference room at Sato Corp, looking down at a contract that was about to change the trajectory of decentralized finance in Asia. "The board is unanimous, Wyatt-san," Kenji said, sliding the document across the mahogany table. "Your algorithm for verifying asset liquidity is exactly what we needed. It brings transparency to a market that has been murky. Transparency is the only currency that matters," I said, signing my name. I didn't use the shaky, hesitant signature of the boy who was afraid to spend money on a textbook. I used the bold, sweeping signature of a partner. "Congratulations," Kenji said, shaking my hand. "By the way, your guests have arrived. I sent a car to Haneda to pick them up. They should be at your apartment within the hour." My chest tightened, but it was a good kind of tight. Anticipation. "Thanks, Kenji. I'm heading out." I walked out of the building and into the cool air. I didn't take the Rolls-Royce today. I decided to walk. I wanted to feel the pavement under my feet. I wanted to look at the city that had adopted me when my own blood had rejected me. My phone buzzed. It was an email from the lawyer in New York. The subject line, "Final disposition of asset, 42 Oak Lane." That was the address. The house. The fortress of Thomas Mason. I opened the attachment. It was a report on the foreclosure auction. Sold. The final price was humiliatingly low. It barely covered the outstanding mortgage and the liens the bank had placed on it. There was no equity left. No inheritance for anyone. The report noted that the previous occupants had vacated the premises, leaving behind significant debris and damage, requiring a specialized cleaning crew. I knew what that debris was. It wasn't just trash. It was the detritus of a collapsed ego. It was the framed photos of Julian receiving participation trophies. It was the expensive golf clubs Dad couldn't actually play with. It was the facade, stripped off the walls and left to rot. I felt nothing. No joy. No sadness. Just a quiet acknowledgement of physics. Cause and effect. Action and reaction. I put the phone away and hailed a taxi. When I got to my apartment, a sleek, modern space in Roppongi Hills, the doorman smiled. "Mr. Wyatt, your friends are in the lobby." I walked in and there they were. Isabella looked different. The last time I saw her, she was in a white dress, screaming at a priest. Now she was wearing jeans, a leather jacket, and combat boots. Her hair was chopped short, a bob that framed her face and made her eyes look huge and bright. She looked younger. She looked lighter. And next to her was Carter, the best man, the getaway driver. He looked tired but content, his arm resting casually on the back of the sofa, not touching Isabella, but protecting her space. "Well," I said, dropping my briefcase, "if it isn't the fugitives." Isabella jumped up. She didn't hesitate. She ran across the lobby and hugged me. It was a fierce, desperate hug, the kind that says thank you for seeing me when no one else did. "Wyatt," she whispered, "you look expensive." I laughed, pulling back. "I'm just well rested. And you? You look like you just broke out of prison." "I did," she grinned. Maximum security. Carter stood up and shook my hand. His grip was solid. Good to see you, man. Tokyo suits you. Better than a tuxedo suits Julian, I said. We went up to my penthouse. I opened a bottle of sake. Not the cheap stuff Dad used to pretend was fancy, but a Junmai Daijinjo that tasted like snowmelt and flowers. We sat on the balcony, watching the city lights flicker on. So, I said, pouring the drinks. Tell me everything. The news only covers the headlines. I want the reality. Isabella took a sip, her eyes closing for a moment. It was worse than the video showed, Wyatt. The days leading up to it. Your father was suffocating. He kept asking about my trust fund. He wanted to know the exact release dates. He made me sign papers he said were for venue insurance. But Carter looked at them. She looked at Carter. They weren't insurance, Carter said, his voice low. They were power of attorney documents. Limited scope, but enough to let Thomas co-sign loans in her name once they were married. He was going to leverage her credit to pay off his bad real estate deals. I knew he was desperate, I said, shaking my head. I didn't know he was criminal. He didn't think it was criminal, Carter said. He thought it was his right. He truly believed that because Julian was marrying Isabella, the Mason family was entitled to the sterling fortune. He called it consolidating assets. I called it theft. That's when Carter told me, Isabella said. The night before the wedding, he showed me the texts Julian sent him. Julian was bragging about how he was going to buy a boat once the merger was done. He didn't even call it a marriage. He called it a merger. I'm sorry, I said. Don't be, she smiled. A sharp, dangerous smile. It was the wake-up call I needed. I was sleepwalking, Wyatt. I was doing what my parents wanted, marrying the nice boy from the country club. I didn't see the rot underneath until you left. Me? Yes, she said. When you walked out of that rehearsal dinner, everyone else was terrified of your father. But you just left. You looked so calm. It made me realize that his power was fake. It only existed if we agreed to be afraid of him. When you stopped being afraid, he looked small. And I thought, I want to be like Wyatt. I felt a lump in my throat. I looked away, staring at the Tokyo Tower. What happened to them? I asked. After the foreclosure. Carter chuckled, a dark sound. Oh, that's the best part. You haven't heard. I blocked them, I said. Complete radio silence. Well, Carter leaned forward. Your dad is currently living in a one-bedroom apartment in Queens. It's a fourth-floor walk-up. No elevator. He told his golf buddies he's downsizing to focus on his memoirs. But the truth is, no one will take his calls. The fraud allegations spooked everyone. He's toxic. And Julian? Julian is the star of the show, Isabella said, pulling out her phone. Look at this. She showed me a photo. It was blurry, taken by a stranger, probably for a TikTok. It showed a man in a red vest, looking miserable, parking a Honda Civic. He's working as a valet, Isabella said, at the steakhouse where he used to have his business lunches. He parks the cars for the people he used to drink with. Poetic, I said. Does he still drive the Porsche? Repossessed, Carter said. He takes the subway. And rumor has it, he's actually trying to sue you for emotional distress. But no lawyer will take the case on contingency because they know you have the best legal team in the hemisphere. I looked at the photo of Julian. He looked older. The shine was gone. The golden boy had rusted. I feel bad for him, I said, surprising myself. Don't, Carter said sharply. He had every chance. He had the car, the tuition, the support. You had nothing, Wyatt. You built this, he gestured to the skyline, from scraps. Julian had a feast and starved to death because he didn't know how to use a fork. It's just, I sighed. He's a victim of Thomas too. Dad crippled him. He made him believe the world owed him everything. That's a hard reality to wake up from. He's 32, Isabella said. He's old enough to set his own alarm clock. We ordered food, bowls of steaming ramen and plates of gyoza. We ate on the floor of the living room, laughing, talking about everything except the Masons. We talked about Isabella's plan to open an art gallery in Kyoto. We talked about Carter's photography. We talked about my new project. For the first time in my life, I was sitting with people who knew my family, but didn't judge me by them. I wasn't the other brother. I was just Wyatt. Later that night, after Isabella had gone to the guest room, Carter and I stayed up finishing the sake. You know, Carter said, looking at his glass, your dad called me one last time before his phone got disconnected. Yeah. He asked if I knew where you were. He didn't ask for money this time. He just asked, does he look happy? I froze. What did you say? I told him the truth. Carter looked me in the eye. I said, he looks like a man who doesn't need you. And Thomas started crying. Not the angry crying. The real kind. The kind where you realize you broke the only thing that was actually solid in your life. I didn't say anything. I let the words settle in the air. He knows Wyatt, Carter said. He knows he bet on the wrong horse. And he knows he shot the winning one. He has to live with that every day in that walk-up apartment. Good, I said softly, but it wasn't malice. It was closure. The next day, I took them to see the cherry blossoms. It wasn't quite the season, but there was a greenhouse in Shinjuku Gyoen where they bloomed early. We walked under the pink canopy. Isabella was taking photos of everything. So, she said, turning to me, what now? You conquered Tokyo. You defeated the villains. What's the next chapter for Wyatt? I don't know, I admitted. For 10 years, my goal was just to survive them, to prove them wrong. Now that I've done it, it's quiet. Quiet is good, she said. Quiet is where you build the real stuff. I'm thinking of starting a foundation, I said. Financial literacy for kids who don't have support. Kids who get told they're too poor to dream. Isabella smiled, and it was the brightest thing in the entire garden. See? That's the difference. Thomas would have bought a yacht. You're building a ladder. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it. I didn't care who it was. I was with my real family now. But later, when I was alone, I checked it. It was a notification from LinkedIn. Julian Mason has viewed your profile. I clicked on his profile. It was stripped bare. No senior VP. No fake accolades. Just a simple entry, valet parking attendant current. And a summary that read, looking for opportunities. Willing to learn from the bottom up. I stared at it. Willing to learn. Maybe getting kicked off the pedestal was the best thing that ever happened to him. Maybe, just maybe, the golden child was finally becoming a real person. I didn't message him. I didn't offer him a job. That would be enabling him again. If he wanted to rise, he had to do it the way I did. Alone. Without a safety net. I closed the app and turned off my phone. The sun was setting over Tokyo, painting the sky in shades of violet and burnt orange. I stood on my balcony and took a deep breath. The air smelled of rain and electricity. I wasn't the exile anymore. I wasn't the backup plan. I was the architect of my own life. And the view from here was spectacular. The seasons in Japan are distinct. They don't bleed into each other like the gray sludge of a New York winter. Here, winter is crisp and sharp, and spring is an explosion of life. It had been 6 months since the wedding of the century imploded. 6 months since I took that flight. I was sitting in my office, which was no longer a corner of a rented apartment but a top-floor suite in the Marunouchi district. My assistant, a brilliant young woman named Yumi, knocked on the door. Wyatt-san, the package from America arrived, she said, placing a small, battered cardboard box on my desk. I stared at it. It had no return address, but I recognized the handwriting. It was shaky, jagged. Dad's handwriting, but not the bold script he used on checks he couldn't cash. This was the writing of a man whose hands trembled. Thank you, Yumi, I said. That will be all. She left, closing the door softly. I sat there for a long time, just looking at the box. It was taped shut with cheap duct tape. It looked fragile. I cut the tape with a letter opener, a gift from Kenji. Inside, there was no bomb, no lawsuit, no demand for money. There was just a watch. And a letter. I picked up the watch. It was an old Timex. The leather strap was worn, the glass scratched. It wasn't a Rolex. It wasn't a Patek Philippe. It was the watch my grandfather had worn. The watch Dad had sworn he lost years ago. He had told me, when I was 12, that he had pawned it to pay for essentials. I found out later those essentials were a down payment on a jet ski we used twice. I turned it over. On the back, an engraving, "Time tells the truth." I unfolded the letter. It was written on lined notebook paper. "Wyatt, I know you probably won't read this. You shouldn't. If I were you, I would have burned this box unopened. I'm writing this from the new apartment. The heating is loud, and the neighbors argue at 3 a.m. It reminds me of the first place your mother and I lived in before the money, before the obsession. Back when I was actually happy, though I didn't know it. I saw your interview in the Financial Times. The quiet architect of DeFi. I read every word. I didn't understand half of the technical terms, but I understood the tone. You sounded strong. You sounded sure. You sounded like the man I pretended to be. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I can't afford the price of admission for that. I just wanted you to have this watch. I didn't lose it. I hid it. I hid it because I was ashamed that it was all my father left me, and it wasn't gold. I wanted to leave Julian gold. I wanted to leave you nothing, because looking at you reminded me that I hadn't earned my own way. You were the mirror I couldn't stand to look into, Wyatt. You worked hard. You were honest. You were everything I wasn't. So I tried to break the mirror. Julian comes by on Sundays. He brings takeout from the restaurant where he works. He looks tired. His hands are rough. But he talks to me now. He doesn't talk about cars or trips. He talks about the weather. About the customers who tip well. He's becoming human. We both are. I'm sorry I uninvited you, but it was the best gift I could have given you. I set you free. Don't write back. Just keep the watch. Or throw it away. It doesn't matter. Thomas. I put the letter down. My hand wasn't shaking. I picked up the watch again. I wound the little dial on the side. Tick, tick, tick. It still worked. After all the lies, after all the years of being hidden in the dark, the mechanism still worked. I took off my platinum Rolex, a symbol of my success, and laid it on the desk. I strapped the cheap, scratched Timex onto my wrist. Felt heavy, not with guilt but with history. I walked to the window. Tokyo stretched out before me, a sprawling matrix of lights and lives. I thought about the concept of the golden child and the scapegoat. It's a tragedy written in so many families. The golden child is fed sweet poison, told they can do no wrong, shielded from consequence, crippled by expectation. Julian never had a chance to build muscle because Dad carried him everywhere. When Dad fell, Julian dropped like a stone. And the scapegoat? We are fed bitterness. We are told we are wrong, awkward, insufficient. We are forced to navigate the dark without a flashlight. But in that darkness we learn to see. We learn to hunt. We learn to build our own light. Dad was right about one thing. Uninviting me was a gift. The rejection was the final severing of the cord. If he had let me into that wedding, if he had let me sit in the back row and eat the rubbery chicken, I might still be there, trapped in their orbit, hoping for a crumb of approval. Instead, he pushed me off the cliff. And he forgot that I had spent my whole life building wings. My phone buzzed. It was Isabella. Isabella. Hey. Carter and I are at the airport, heading back to the States. I have a gallery opening to plan. Carter is going to shoot the catalog. We're going to stop by the diner where Julian works. I'm going to tip him $100. Is that mean? I smiled and typed back. Me, it's generous. Just don't let him park the car. Isabella. Haha. Deal. When are you coming back to visit? I looked at the skyline. I looked at the Timex on my wrist. Me, not yet. I have work to do. And I did. I had the foundation to launch. I had code to write. I had a life to live that was entirely apologetically mine. I wasn't Wyatt the poor brother. I wasn't Wyatt the billionaire. I was just Wyatt. And for the first time in 30 years, that was enough. This story isn't just about a wedding gone wrong or a satisfying revenge against a toxic family. It's a story about the danger of letting other people define your worth. We all have a Thomas in our lives, someone who measures value by optics, by what can be seen and shown off, rather than what is true and substantial. My father and brother chased the appearance of wealth so hard they lost the reality of it. They chased the appearance of love and respect but ended up with neither. I spent years thinking I was the broken one because I didn't fit into their picture frame. But the truth was, the frame was crooked. If you are the black sheep or the scapegoat of your family, listen to me. Your awkwardness is your strength. Your exclusion is your freedom. The moment they stop inviting you to the table is the moment you can finally go build your own house. Do not wait for an apology that may never come. Do not wait for them to see you. See yourself. Validate yourself. Money helped me, yes. But the real wealth was the moment I realized I didn't need their permission to be happy. So, here's my question for you. Have you ever been made to feel like you didn't fit in your own family or circle of friends? Have you ever had a moment where being rejected turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to you? I want to hear your stories. Drop a comment below with your experience. Or, if this story resonated with you and you're glad I found my freedom, just comment the word freedom below. Let's start a conversation about self-worth. Let's remind each other that we are not defined by the invitations we don't get, but by the journeys we choose to take. Thank you for listening. Thank you for flying with me to Tokyo. And remember, the best revenge is a life well lived. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories of truth and triumph. I'll see you in the next one.